Hi everyone, welcome to Sprint 13 of Dogen, version 1.0.13. As I mentioned in my release notes, the main focus of this sprint has been to enable unit testing of generated code again, which is not exactly a very exciting feature from a perspective of an end user really, but there's still a couple of interesting points that I think are worth demoing. Also, I hope this sounds a bit better, this demo. It was pretty bad last time. I think there's still a lot of noise, and I've got a cold as well, which doesn't help. But hopefully it'll be enough for you to understand what's going on. So as I mentioned, the tests facet is a new facet. It's mainly created for internal purposes, but because it's a facet, just like anything else the code generator generates, you can enable it in your own projects. It is useful, for example, if you want to figure out if some code that your Dogen is generating is working correctly or not. Most likely you probably want this feature disabled, but if you do have a problem, you probably want to enable it. So I'm going to quickly show this feature. So in a hello world model, as we had in the past, I made a slight change to it. I created a package or a module, and I put a class in it, and I am about to enable the knob for this new feature and save the model. So if I go to a shell, here you can see I've got the latest version of Dogen. So if I go to a shell, and if I call generate against this hello world target, Dogen will go away and generate the model. So I've already committed all the initial states, so what you're seeing here are the differences. First thing you notice is the make file now includes tests, which is a new folder, and the second thing you notice is the folder tests. So if we have a quick look at the folder tests, you can see that Dogen now generated a very simple main for the tests, and per type in that model it generated a set of tests. So we had one property tests and a class tests. So if I have a quick look at one of these, as you can see, it just does a number of very basic sanity checks against types, checking different features of the model, such as operators, equals, and so forth. Some of these tests don't work for all compilers, so as you can see there's some ugliness here with macros, but most of them work for all compilers. As part of the tests, we test different things like hashing, as you can see here. We also test serialization across the different archive formats, as you can see here. So this gives us a good belief that the code that we are generating is actually working correctly. We had to disable these tests for a bit, as I explained in the release notes, but now they are all back up, and we've enabled them across all the different builds and across all different operative systems, so that's very good coverage for them. A second feature that was added was to delete empty directories. This is a common use case again when you're developing Dogen, perhaps not as much in when you're actually using it in anger, but nonetheless. So let's imagine that I enabled tests just now, but then I had decided to disable tests. If I set this to false now, and if I go back to my shell, if I generate my model again, when I go back to Git, as you can see here, everything that Dogen had generated has disappeared. But unfortunately, when we go into the project itself, many folders are still left behind, as you can see. Basically all the folders related to the previous generation are still there, which is not what you want really, especially when you do this many times. So now there's a new feature in Dogen, which is delete empty directories, and if you set that to true, and if you save, when you go back to Dogen and generate again, now of course you won't see any difference in Git other than the fact that the model has changed, but the important bit is that the folders that were left behind will have just disappeared, which is what you want really. And like I said, that these folders are not picked up by Git, so you wouldn't even know that they're there annoying you. With the setting, it cleans up the directory. For the next sprint, again, we are going to try to see if we can finally sort things out with regards to the meta model changes that we need to make, the very hard meta model changes. The work started in the previous sprint, but it wasn't close to completion, so we postponed the finishing of the work for the sprint 13. Ideally, we want to move all the decoration-related elements, such as copyright licenses and so on, to the meta model, and we also want to move the annotation profiles. And this is a really important change, because this will mean that Dogen models will be configurable within the models themselves. At present, as you're probably aware, you need to go through data files, and it's actually quite complicated to configure the model. With this change, it will be just like adding new modeling types, the configuration itself. So you can easily create types like serializable and so forth. And that's all for this release. Thank you very much for listening.